I, 28, F, am married to my husband Mark, 30, M. We were on our annual family vacation with his side of the family. It was always a stressful event for me. His mother, Diana, had a way of making me feel small. She was polite on the surface, but her words always had a sharp edge. This year was no different. We were all sitting around a large dinner table at the rented beach house. I had spent the entire afternoon helping prepare the meal. I had made a side dish, a layered salad that my own mother had taught me. I was proud of it. Diana took a small bite of the salad. She chewed slowly, her face a mask of careful consideration. Then she looked directly at Mark, completely ignoring me. She said, "I wish my son had married a better cook." The words hung in the air. The clinking of forks stopped. Everyone looked down at their plates. No one said a word. Mark just shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He did not look at me. He did not defend me. He just picked up his glass of water and took a long drink. A hot wave of shame washed over me. My eyes started to burn. I wanted to disappear. I felt like a child who had been scolded in front of the entire school. I pushed my chair back from the table. I did not say anything. I could not speak. The lump in my throat was too big. I walked away from the table, down the hallway, and into the small bedroom Mark and I were sharing. I closed the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed. And then I cried. I cried until my head ached and my eyes were swollen shut. I cried for the insult. I cried for the silence of my husband. I cried because I knew this would not be the last time she would hurt me. I felt utterly alone, surrounded by a family that was not mine and a husband who would not protect me. After what felt like an hour, the door opened. It was Mark. He stood there for a moment, looking at me. He had a plate of food in his hand. He set it down on the nightstand. He did not try to hug me. He did not say he was sorry. "You should eat something," he said. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. I looked at him, my face still wet with tears. "Why did you not say anything?" I asked. He said. I stared at him in disbelief. "High standards." That was his excuse. My salad was not good enough for her high standards. I was not good enough for her high standards. My entire being was not good enough. "So my cooking is not up to her standards?" I asked. "Is that what you think too?" "Of course not," he said quickly. "I love your cooking. You know that. Then why did you not tell her that?" I pressed. "Why did you just sit there and let her humiliate me?" He did not have an answer. He just looked down at his hands. The silence in the room was heavier than before. It was filled with all the things he was not saying. It was filled with his loyalty to his mother, a loyalty that clearly came before his loyalty to me. "I am tired of this, Mark," I said softly. "I am so tired of trying to win her approval. It is impossible. And I am tired of you letting it happen. I will talk to her," he promised. "I will talk to her tomorrow." I knew he would not. Or if he did, it would be a soft, gentle conversation that changed nothing. He would say something like, "Mom, you hurt Clara's feelings." And she would reply, "Oh, she is just too sensitive." And that would be the end of it. Nothing would change. It never did. I did not want the food he brought. My appetite was gone. I just wanted to go home. I wanted to be in my own space, away from her critical eyes and my husband's weakness. But we were stuck here for another 4 days. 4 more days of walking on eggshells. 4 more days of her subtle and not-so-subtle jabs. Later that night, I could not sleep. Mark was breathing deeply beside me, lost to the world. I slipped out of bed and walked quietly through the dark beach house. I just needed some air. The back porch overlooked the ocean. The sound of the waves was usually calming, but tonight it just sounded like a restless churning, just like my own thoughts. As I stood there, I heard voices from inside. The kitchen light was on. It was Diana. She was on the phone. Her voice was low, but the porch door was slightly ajar and I could hear her clearly. "Oh, you should have seen her face," Diana said, and she laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. She ran from the table like a scolded puppy. It was perfect. My blood ran cold. I am just making sure she understands that. One little comment at a time. She will either toughen up and become what I want her to be, or she will leave. Either way, I win. I felt sick. This was not just a thoughtless comment. This was a plan. A deliberate, cruel campaign to break me down. She wanted to either mold me into a perfect little doll that fit her standards or drive me away from her son. And my husband, her son, was her willing accomplice. Whether he knew the full extent of it or not, I backed away from the door silently. I went back to the bedroom. I felt a different kind of tears welling up. These were not tears of sadness or shame. They were tears of anger. Hot, furious anger. She thought she could win. She thought she could break me. I lay down in bed, my mind racing. I was done crying. I was done feeling hurt. Something inside me had shifted. The pain was still there, but it was hardening into something else. It was hardening into resolve. She wanted a war. Fine. She would get one. But I would not fight it on her terms. I would not stoop to her level of petty cruelty. I would find my own way to win. I would find a way to show everyone, including my husband, exactly who his mother was. The next morning, I acted as if nothing had happened. I came out to the kitchen with a polite smile on my face. Diana was there, humming to herself as she made coffee. She looked at me, her eyes scanning me for any sign of last night's breakdown. "Good morning, Clara," she said, her voice full of fake sweetness. "Did you sleep well?" "Like a baby," I lied. "The ocean air is so relaxing." She seemed a little disappointed that I was not red-eyed and miserable. I took a small amount of pleasure in that. Mark came into the kitchen a few minutes later. He gave me a tentative look, as if expecting me to still be angry with him. I gave him a small, non-committal smile. I was not going to make this easy for him. "Mom, can I talk to you for a second?" he said, just as I predicted. "Of course, dear," she said, patting his arm. They stepped into the pantry. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to be busy looking for a mug. I could hear their muffled voices. You were a little hard on, triumphant gleam in her eye. She thought she had won again. She had managed her son perfectly. I decided my first move would be small. It would be about the cooking. She had made her high standards and her supposed culinary genius the battlefield. So that is where I would start. Later that day, Diana announced she was making her famous lasagna for dinner. Everyone in the family raved about this lasagna. It was supposedly a secret recipe passed down through generations. "Oh, that would be wonderful," I said with my brightest smile. "I have always wanted to learn how to make it." "Could I help you? I would love to watch and learn from a master." My words were dripping with false admiration. Mark looked relieved. He thought I was trying to make peace. Diana looked pleased. She loved being praised. "Well, of course, dear," she said. "It is a complicated recipe, but I suppose you can try to keep up." I followed her into the kitchen. I watched her every move. She pulled out a large box of store-bought lasagna noodles. She pulled out 3 large jars of a very popular brand of pasta sauce. She pulled out a container of pre-shredded cheese. The only thing she made from scratch was the meat filling, and even that was just browning some ground beef with a chopped onion. I watched, saying nothing. I made mental notes of everything. She assembled the lasagna quickly, layering the jarred sauce, the uncooked noodles, the meat, and the cheese. It was the most basic, uninspired lasagna I had ever seen, the kind a college student would make. "The secret," she said, leaning in conspiratorially as she sprinkled the last layer of cheese, "is a tiny pinch of nutmeg in the meat. It gives it that special something no one can quite place, a pinch of nutmeg." That was her generational secret. I had to stop myself from laughing out loud. "It looks amazing," I said, my voice full of fake awe. "You are truly an artist in the kitchen, Diana." She beamed at me. She completely bought it. "Well, it takes years of practice," she said modestly. That evening at dinner, everyone praised the lasagna as expected. "Mom, this is the best one yet," Mark's brother said. "Oh, Diana, you have to give me the recipe," his sister-in-law gushed. Diana just smiled graciously. "Have sworn it was a slow-simmered family recipe. But she has this amazing trick. She uses the Barilla brand sauce. It tastes just like homemade. I'm going to start buying it myself. It will save me so much time. The table went quiet. The sister-in-law, who had just been gushing, looked confused. Mark was staring at me, a look of panic on his face. Diana's face was pale. I just smiled innocently. "It is so clever," I said. "Why spend all day making sauce from scratch when you can get results this good from a jar? You are not just a great cook, Diana. You are a smart one, too." I took another bite of the lasagna. The silence was deafening. I had not accused her of anything. I had praised her. I had complimented her cleverness, but I had also exposed her. I had revealed that her secret recipe was a fraud. I had done it with a smile on my face, using her own weapon of polite, backhanded comments against her. Diana quickly recovered. "Well, of course, a good cook knows when to use quality shortcuts," she said, her voice a little strained. "The real secret is in the technique, not just the ingredients." But the damage was done. The mystique of her famous lasagna was gone. I could see the look of disillusionment on her daughter-in-law's face. I felt a small, satisfying thrill. It was a tiny victory, but it was a start. I had shown her that I was not the meek little puppy she could kick around. I could bite back. The next day, the atmosphere was tense. Diana was being pointedly cold towards me. Mark was walking on eggshells, trying to placate both of us. He pulled me aside after breakfast. "What was that last night, Clara?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. "What was what?" I asked, playing innocent. "I was complimenting your mother. I thought she was very clever." "You know what I mean," he said. "You embarrassed her." "You made it sound like she just opened a few jars." "She did just open a few jars, Mark," I said calmly. "I was just stating a fact. A fact I learned from her. Is she ashamed of using store-bought sauce?" He looked frustrated. "You know she is. She has this whole reputation. Her cooking is important to her." To see that I was not going to just cry in the bedroom anymore. He did not know what to do. He was trapped between his manipulative mother and his newly defiant wife. I felt a small pang of pity for him, but it was quickly replaced by my own resolve. He had made his choice when he sat in silence. Now he had to live with the consequences. My next opportunity came that afternoon. Diana was on the phone with one of her friends, talking loudly on the porch so everyone could hear. She was talking about a local charity bake sale that was happening in their town the week after we got back. "Oh yes, I will be entering my famous lemon chiffon cake," she said into the phone. "It always wins first prize. The secret recipe is a true family heirloom, passed down from my grandmother I listened from the living room. Another secret recipe. Another family heirloom." I was starting to see a pattern. I decided to do a little more digging. When we got back from the vacation, the tension with Diana was worse than ever. She barely spoke to me, and when she did, her voice was clipped and cold. Mark was miserable, constantly trying to broker a peace that was never going to happen. I, on the other hand, felt a strange sense of calm. I had a purpose. I started my investigation with a simple phone call to Mark's aunt, Carol. She was Diana's sister, but they were not very close. Carol was a quiet, kind woman who had always been nice to me. I thought she might be a good source of information. "Hi, Carol," I said when she answered. "It is Clara." "Clara, dear, how are you?" she asked warmly. "How was the trip?" "It was interesting," I said. "Listen, I have a kind of silly question for you." I was hoping to get the recipe for Diana's lemon chiffon cake. She mentioned it was a family heirloom from your grandmother, and I thought it would be a nice gesture to learn how to make it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Clara," Carol said finally, her voice sounding strange, "our grandmother never made a lemon chiffon cake in her life. She was a terrible baker. We used to joke that her cakes could be used as doorstops." My heart started to beat a little faster. "Oh," I said, trying to sound surprised. "That is odd." "Thank you, Carol," I said. "You have been a big help." "Be careful, Clara," she warned. My sister does not like to have her stories questioned. I will be very careful, I promised. My next step was to find proof. I needed something more than just Carol's word. I remembered Mark mentioning that his mother kept all her old recipe cards in a beautiful wooden box in the study of their home. A few days later, Mark and I were scheduled to have dinner at his parents' house. It was the perfect opportunity. While Mark and his father were in the backyard looking at the new grill, and Diana was busy in the kitchen, I excused myself to use the restroom. Instead, I slipped into the study. My heart was pounding. I felt like a spy on a secret mission. The study was dark and smelled of old books. I found the recipe box on a bookshelf. It was just as Mark had described it, a dark cherry wood with an intricate carving on the lid. I opened it carefully. Inside were hundreds of recipe cards, all neatly organized with dividers. I flipped through them. Most of them were, as Carol had predicted, clipped from magazines or the sides of boxes. I saw clippings from Good Housekeeping, Woman's Day, and Betty Crocker. There were very few handwritten cards. I looked under the C for cake. I found recipes for chocolate cake, carrot cake, and coffee cake, but there was no recipe for lemon chiffon cake. I looked under L for lemon. Nothing. I went through every single card in that box. It was not there. Her most famous, prize-winning, family heirloom recipe was not in her own recipe box. This was significant. If it was so precious, so important, why would it not be with all the others? It meant either she had it hidden somewhere else, or she did not have it at all because it was not hers to begin with. I closed the box and put it back exactly where I had found it. I took a deep breath and went back to the kitchen. Diana was pulling a roast chicken out of the oven. "There you are," she said, not looking at me. "Dinner is almost ready." "It smells delicious," I said. "I was just admiring your study. You have so many wonderful books." She grunted in response. During dinner, I decided to lay another small trap. "Diana," I said. "Old." "Oh, she sounded sharp as a tack to me," I said, taking a sip of water. "She even told me that funny story about how Grandma's cakes were so hard you could use them as doorstops." We had a good laugh about that. Diana did not say anything. She just stared at her plate. Her perfect narrative had been questioned, and she did not like it one bit. I had planted a seed of doubt. I had shown her that I was talking to other people in the family, that her lies were not safe with me. The following week, the community bake sale was the talk of the town. It was a big event, held on the town green. There were prizes for different categories, and the grand prize, Best in Show, was a huge honor. Diana had won it for the past 3 years running with her lemon chiffon cake. Her picture was always in the local paper. It was a huge source of her social standing. I knew this was my chance. This was the public stage I needed. I spent the week perfecting my own plan. It felt risky, but I knew I had to do it. I called Carol again. "Carol, it is Clara," I said. "I need your help." I explained everything to her. I told her about Diana's comment on vacation, about the phone call I overheard, about the lasagna, and about the recipe box. I told her my suspicions about the lemon chiffon cake. "I knew it," Carol said, her voice full of a weary sadness. "I knew she was a fraud. That cake, it is not just any recipe, Clara. It was our mother's recipe." "Your mother?" I asked, confused. "But you said your grandmother was the terrible baker." "She was," Carol said. "I meant Diana's and my mother, Mark's other grandmother. She was a phenomenal baker, and that lemon chiffon cake was her masterpiece. She made it for every single family occasion. After she passed away, Diana went to her house to help clean things out. That is when the recipe box disappeared. I always suspected Diana took it. A few months later, she started making that cake, claiming it was from our other grandmother, the one who could not bake. She knew no one would question a story about that side of the family because they were all gone. This was the smoking gun. The lie was bigger and more malicious than I had even imagined. She had not just lied, She had stolen a legacy. Clara, Carol said finally, her voice firm. She has hurt a lot of people with her lies, not just you. Yes, I will be there. We made a plan. Carol would bring the original recipe card. We would wait for the perfect moment. We would not be cruel or loud. We would be calm and factual. We would let the truth speak for itself. The day of the bake sale was bright and sunny. The town green was crowded with people. There were long tables filled with cakes, pies, and cookies. Diana was at her table, preening over her perfect-looking lemon chiffon cake. She was holding court, accepting compliments from everyone who walked by. Mark and I arrived together. He was still trying to pretend everything was normal. "Look, there's Mom," he said, pointing. "Her cake looks amazing, as usual." I did not say anything. I just gave him a small smile. I saw Carol standing near the back of the crowd, by the big oak tree. She gave me a subtle nod. I nodded back. It was almost time. The judging began. A panel of 3 local dignitaries, including the mayor, went from table to table tasting each entry. When they got to Diana's table, they made a big show of it. "Ah, the legendary Diana Miller and her famous chiffon cake," the mayor said, smiling. "The reigning champion." Diana blushed and giggled like a schoolgirl. "Oh, you are too kind, Mayor," she said. "It is just an old family recipe." "Well, it is a winner," he said. The judges each took a bite. They made sounds of appreciation. I could see the smug look of victory already forming on Diana's face. She thought she had it in the bag. The judges moved on. After they had tasted everything, they gathered on a small stage to announce the winners. They announced the 3rd and 2nd place winners for the cake category. Then, the mayor took the microphone. "And now, for the first prize in the cake category and a strong contender for Best in Show," he announced. "For the 4th year in a row, Diana Miller's lemon chiffon cake." A round of applause broke out. Diana walked towards the stage, her face glowing with pride. She took the blue ribbon from the mayor and held it up for everyone to see. She beamed, soaking in the admiration. This was the moment. I started walking towards the stage, my voice sweet as honey. "A true family heirloom, passed down from your grandmother. Could you tell us all the story? I am sure everyone would love to hear about the woman who created this prize-winning cake." The crowd murmured in agreement. They loved a good story. Diana froze. I had her trapped. She could not refuse to answer without looking rude, but she could not tell the story because it was a lie. She had no details to share about a woman who could not bake. She is panicking now. I can see it in her eyes. The smile is gone, replaced by a deer-in-the-headlights stare. Her perfect moment is crumbling. "Well," she stammers, "it is a very old story. I do not want to bore everyone with the details." "Oh, nonsense," I say, my voice still bright and cheerful. "We are not bored. Please, tell us. What was your grandmother's name? What was she like?" Mark is standing at the edge of the crowd, his face ashen. He knows what I am doing. He is paralyzed, unable to intervene. He is finally seeing what it means to be caught in the middle of a battle he refused to fight. Diana looks desperately out at the crowd, as if searching for an escape. Her eyes are darting around. She cannot form a coherent sentence. She was a wonderful woman. Very traditional. This is where the trap snaps shut. "That is so lovely," I say. "It is a shame your own sister Carol does not remember her that way. In fact, Carol is here today, and she remembers a very different story about that recipe." As if on cue, Carol steps out from the crowd. She walks slowly and deliberately towards the stage. She is holding a small, yellowed index card in her hand. The crowd parts for her. Everyone is silent, watching this unfold. Diana sees her sister, and all the color leaves her face. She looks like she has seen a ghost. "Hello, Diana," Carol says, her voice quiet but firm. She does not look at the crowd. She looks only at her sister. It is a beautiful cake. It looks just like the one Mom used to make. Diana is speechless. She just shakes her head slightly, a tiny, desperate gesture of denial. "You know, Diana," Carol continues, holding up the recipe card, "I found something the other day when I was going through some of Mom's old things. It is her recipe for lemon chiffon cake, the one she made for watching the truth do its work." Diana looks at the card. She looks at her sister. She looks at me. And in her eyes, I see not remorse, but pure, unadulterated hatred. She is not sorry for what she did. She is only sorry she got caught. "This is ridiculous," she says, her voice a harsh whisper. "She is lying." She has always been jealous of me, but her denial is weak. No one believes her. The evidence is right there, in her sister's hand, and on her own guilty face. Carol turns to the mayor. "I am sorry for this disruption," she says calmly, "but the recipe for this cake was not passed down from my grandmother. It was created by my mother, Eleanor Miller, and Diana did not inherit it. She stole it from our mother's home after she passed away. This prize," she says, gesturing to the blue ribbon in Diana's hand, "is based on a lie she has been telling for years." The mayor looks at Diana, then at Carol. He is a politician. He knows a public relations disaster when he sees one. He takes the blue ribbon from Diana's limp hand. "In light of this new information," he says into the microphone, his voice booming across the green, "the judges have decided to disqualify this entry. We will reevaluate the remaining contestants for the first prize." A wave of gasps and murmurs ripples through the crowd. Diana just stands there, stripped of her prize, her reputation in tatters. She looks small and pathetic. The queen has been dethroned. She turns and flees from the stage. She pushes her way through the stunned crowd, not looking at anyone. I watch her go. I do not feel triumphant. I do not feel happy. I just feel a quiet sense of justice. It is done. Mark comes up to me. His face is a mixture of shock, anger, and something else. Maybe shame. "Clara," he says, his voice barely audible. "How could you do this?" I turn to face him. I am no longer the crying woman in the bedroom. I am no longer the wife who will accept his silence. "How could I do this?" I ask, my voice cold and steady. "How could you let her do what she did to me? To her own she says simply. "It has been buried for too long." We stand there together, two women who were wronged by the same person, and we watch as the world we knew rearranges itself. The fallout from that day was immediate and lasting. The local newspaper, instead of featuring a glowing photo of Diana with her prize, ran a small, discreet article mentioning that the initial winner of the bake sale had been disqualified due to a dispute over the recipe's origin. The story spread through the town's gossip mill like wildfire. Diana's reputation as the perfect homemaker was shattered overnight. Her friends started to distance themselves from her. The social standing she had so carefully constructed was gone. Diana did not leave her house for 2 weeks. When she finally did, she was a changed woman. The arrogant, confident air she always carried was gone, replaced by a defeated slump. People would whisper when she walked by. She had become a local cautionary tale. The biggest change, however, was in my marriage. The night of the bake sale, Mark and I had the longest, hardest conversation of our lives. We sat in our living room, the silence stretching between us. He was the first to speak. "I am sorry, Clara," he said. He did not look at me. He looked at the floor. "I am so sorry." "You were right. I let it happen. I always let it happen." "Why?" I asked. It was the only question that mattered. He finally looked up and his eyes were full of tears. "Because I was a coward," he said, his voice thick with emotion. She has always been like this, controlling, manipulative. If I ever stood up to her, she would make my life miserable. She would guilt me. She would turn the whole family against me. It was just easier to go along with it, to keep the peace. "There was no peace, Mark," I said softly. "There was just you being comfortable while I was in pain." "I know," he said. "I see that now."
Seeing her on that stage, seeing the lies fall apart, it was like I was seeing her for the first time. And seeing you. You were so strong. You did what I should have done years ago. I was so ashamed of myself.
Painful truths. Mark had to unlearn a lifetime of conditioning from his mother. He had to learn how to set boundaries. He had to learn that my safety and happiness were his primary responsibility, not her feelings. His first real test came a few months later. Diana called him. She wanted us to come over for dinner. She said she wanted to clear the air. Mark looked at me. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "What do you want to do?" I countered. He took a deep breath. "I want to tell her that we will not be coming to dinner," he said. "I want to tell her that we need space, and that if she ever wants a relationship with us again, it will be on our terms. And the first term is a sincere, public apology to you and to Carol." I was stunned. It was the strongest I had ever seen him be. "Okay," I said. "Let's do that." He called her back and put the phone on speaker. "Mom," he said, his voice firm, "Clara and I will not be coming for dinner. And we will not be seeing you until you are ready to apologize. A real apology. To Clara for years of cruelty, and to Aunt Carol for stealing from our family's legacy." There was a sputtering on the other end of the line. "How dare you!" Diana shrieked. "After everything I have done for you, that woman has turned you against your own mother." "No, Mom," Mark said calmly. "You did this. Your actions did this. The choice is yours. We are done talking about this for now. Goodbye." He hung up the phone. He looked at me, his expression a mixture of fear and relief. I reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," I said. Diana never did apologize. She was too proud, too stubborn. She tried to rally the family against us, but for the first time, her manipulations did not work. Carol had already told everyone the true story. They had seen Diana's public humiliation. The power she once held over them was broken. She became an isolated figure, a bitter old woman who had pushed everyone away with her own toxicity. A year after the bake sale, Mark and I hosted Thanksgiving at our house. We invited my family, and we invited Carol. It was a warm, happy, and peaceful day. There were no backhanded comments, no tension, no walking on eggshells. I spent the day cooking. I made my mother's layered through it. I had lost a mother-in-law, but I had gained a true partner. And I had found a strength in myself that I never knew I had. I was no longer the woman who cried in the bedroom. I was the woman who stood up and fought back. And I had won. The healing process was not instantaneous. There were moments of doubt, flashes of the old fear in Mark's eyes when the phone would ring and he would see his mother's name. But he held firm. He learned to say no. He learned to hang up when she became verbally abusive. Each time he did it, he stood a little taller. Each time the trust between us grew a little stronger. Our life became quieter without the constant drama Diana created. We reconnected with the family members who had also been pushed to the fringes by her behavior. We had dinners with Carol regularly. We heard stories about our family, real stories, not the fabricated narratives Diana had spun for years. We learned about Eleanor Miller, Mark's grandmother, the true baker. Carol gave me a copy of her recipe box, the one she had managed to save. It was full of beautiful, handwritten recipes and notes in the margins. It was a real legacy, one built on love and generosity, not theft and lies. One afternoon, I decided to try making the infamous lemon chiffon cake. I followed Eleanor's handwritten instructions carefully. The cake came out of the oven, light, airy, and smelling of bright citrus. It was perfect. When Mark came home from work, I had a slice waiting for him. He took a bite, and his eyes closed. "What is this?" he asked, his voice full of wonder. "This is your grandmother's cake," I said softly. "The real one." A tear rolled down his cheek. "It tastes like my childhood," he whispered. I had forgotten. He had not just forgotten the taste of the cake, he had forgotten what a family was supposed to feel like. One without fear, without manipulation, without a constant need for approval. We were building that now, on our own terms. We never saw Diana again. We heard through Carol that she had sold her large house and moved to a small condo in a different town. She had wanted a fresh start, a place where no one knew her story. But the story followed her. The world is smaller than people think. She could not escape what she had done. She had victory sweeter than any prize-winning cake. Our journey wasn't just about defeating Diana. It was about rebuilding Mark. The therapy sessions were eye-opening. The therapist helped him identify the patterns of emotional manipulation he had endured since childhood. He had been trained to anticipate his mother's moods, to sacrifice his own needs to keep her happy. He saw his father do it. He saw his aunts and uncles do it. It was the family's survival mechanism. Your mother's love was conditional, the therapist told him one day. It was something you had to earn by being obedient. Clara's love is not. You have to learn to trust that. That was a turning point for him. He started to see his past not as a series of isolated incidents, but as a long, sustained campaign of control. The lasagna, the bake sale cake, the backhanded compliments about my clothes or my job, they were all tools to keep him under her thumb by ensuring his wife always felt inadequate and off balance. As Mark grew stronger, he started to have conversations with his father. At first, his dad was defensive. He had been enabling Diana for over 40 years. Admitting she was wrong felt like admitting his own life had been a failure. "Your mother is just a difficult woman," he would say. "You just have to learn how to handle her." "No, Dad," Mark said one day, his voice steady. "She is a bully, and we do not have to handle her. We have to stop her. I have stopped her from affecting my life and my marriage. You should think about doing the same." It was a slow process, but eventually, even his father started to pull away from Diana's influence. Without Mark as a buffer, he was getting the full force of her negativity, and he did not like it. He started spending more time with his brother, going fishing, things he had not done in years because Diana did not approve. The entire family dynamic, which had once revolved around pleasing Diana, began to decentralize. People started forming relationships with each other based on mutual interests, not on their allegiance to the matriarch. My friend Sarah, who had been my confidant through the whole ordeal, was overjoyed. We had a celebratory dinner a few months after the bake sale. "I have to admit," she said, raising a glass of wine, "there was a part of me that thought you should just leave him. I did not think he would ever change." Offered, and then braced for the next insult. The pain of that night on vacation had burned away my fear. It had forged something new inside me. We continued to build our new life. We started new traditions. We hosted a Friendsgiving every year. We took vacations, just the two of us, to places where we could just be a couple, not a son and a daughter-in-law. We were creating our own stories, our own memories, untainted by Diana's influence. One day, about 2 years after the bake sale, Mark got a letter in the mail. It was from his mother. It was the first direct communication she had sent since the phone call where he set his boundaries. He read it silently, his face unreadable. "What is it?" I asked. He handed it to me. It was a long, rambling letter. It was full of self-pity. She wrote about how lonely she was, how the family had abandoned her. She blamed me. She blamed Carol. She blamed everyone but herself. But buried in the last paragraph was one sentence that stood out. "I suppose I should not have said what I did about your cooking," she wrote. It was the closest she would ever come to an apology. It was weak. It was pathetic. It was not enough. "What do you want to do with this?" I asked Mark, holding the letter. He took it from my hand. He walked over to the fireplace, where we had a small fire going to ward off the autumn chill. He dropped the letter into the flames. We watched together as the paper curled, blackened, and turned to ash. "I am done," he said. "She had her chance. Our life is better now. I am not going back." And we never did. We moved forward. We chose peace. We chose happiness. We chose each other. The story of Diana's downfall became a quiet legend in the family, a cautionary tale about what happens when you mistake cruelty for strength. The lemon chiffon cake became a symbol of our new beginning. I make it every year for Mark's birthday. It is not just a cake. It is a reminder of the truth we fought for. It is a taste of freedom. It is the sweet, satisfying flavor of a victory well earned. The experience, as painful as it was, taught me something important about myself. I learned that my peace was worth fighting for. I learned that setting boundaries, joy I had never thought possible. Mark and I decided to start a family. When I told him I was pregnant, the look on his face was one of pure, unadulterated happiness. There was no shadow of what his mother might think or say. It was our moment, completely and utterly ours. Our daughter Eleanor was born the following spring. We named her after the grandmother whose legacy we had reclaimed. Carol was overjoyed to be a great aunt, and she doted on our little Ellie. She would tell her stories about the original Eleanor, a strong, kind woman who filled her home with love and the smell of fresh baking. Through these stories, we kept her memory alive, a positive and nurturing presence in our daughter's life. When Ellie was old enough to stand on a stool and help in the kitchen, the first thing we made together was the lemon chiffon cake. Her little hands were covered in flour, and she laughed as she stirred the batter. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of peace. The cycle of toxicity had been broken. This kitchen was a place of joy, of learning, of love. It was not a battlefield for approval or a stage for humiliation. It was the heart of our home. We never shielded Ellie from the truth about her other grandmother. When she was old enough to understand, we told her a simplified version of the story. We told her that some people make bad choices and hurt others, and that it is important to be honest and kind. We taught her that family is not just about blood. It is about the people who love and support you unconditionally. Mark's relationship with his father continued to improve. After Ellie was born, his dad started visiting more often. He was a doting grandfather. Sometimes, I would see a sad, wistful look on his face as he watched Mark play with our daughter. I think he was mourning the years he had lost, the kind of father he could have been if he had not been so afraid of his wife. But he was making up for it now. He was present. He was engaged. He was finally free. One Christmas, he came to our house for dinner. He pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Clara," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I have never properly thanked you. You saved my son. You saved our family." "I just stood up for myself," I said. "No," he said, shaking his head. "A team, united and strong. We communicated openly. We faced challenges together. We protected our family fiercely. Every now and then, a piece of news about Diana would filter through to us via a distant relative. We heard she had become reclusive. We heard she had health problems. We never felt joy at her misfortune, only a distant, detached sadness for the life she had chosen, for the happiness she had thrown away in her pursuit of control. One day, an unexpected package arrived. It was small and square. There was no return address. I opened it. Inside was a small wooden recipe box. It was not the ornate cherry wood box Diana had kept. This one was simpler, made of light pine. Inside there was a single handwritten recipe card. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible, but I recognized it from the letter she had sent years ago. It was Diana's. The recipe was for a simple apple crumble. At the bottom of the card, she had written a short note. "My mother taught me how to make this. It is the only recipe that is truly mine. There was nothing else. No apology, no explanation. Just that simple, stark admission. After all the lies, after all the stolen glory, this was the only thing she could claim as her own. A simple apple crumble." I showed the box to Mark. He looked at it for a long time. "What does it mean?" I asked. "I do not know," he said. "Maybe it is her way of surrendering. Maybe it is her way of telling the truth, finally. Or maybe it is just another manipulation. With her, you never know." He was right. We would never truly know her motives. But it did not matter anymore. Her power over us was gone. We were not defined by her actions, her words, or her strange, late-life confessions. We put the little pine box away on a high shelf in the back of a closet. We did not throw it out, but we did not display it either. It was a part of our story, a reminder of where we had come from. But it was not a part of our present. That evening, I held my children close and read them a bedtime story. Mark came in and sat with us, his arm around me. Our home was safe. Our family was whole. My life was full. The woman who had once cried until her eyes were swollen shut was gone. In her place was a white